Today we're going to be watching something that came out a few weeks ago, where Tucker Carlson went to a Russian grocery store to prove that Russia is superior to America, or something like that. Anyway, I don't normally do politics, but I would like to get into it somewhat more because politics is a very pressing matter indeed, and certain politicians do play into religion in very important ways. Christian nationalism is obviously a thing that's rising in America, and people like Tucker Carlson are an essential part of that. So let's check this video out and see Tucker Carlson's Russian grocery store experience extravaganza.
So a long-standing feature, maybe the longest-standing feature of Cold War propaganda in the West was the Soviet grocery store. No products, no choices, shoddily made things. And it wasn't actually propaganda, it was real. And you can look up the pictures on the internet if you want. So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at a contemporary, modern-day, 2024 Russian grocery store 2 years into sanctions. Here we go.
So I think it's very interesting to note at this point that the Soviet Union had food shortages all the time for a variety of reasons, and that was obviously not a fantastic thing. Boris Yeltsin, a politician in the late Soviet era into the early independent Russia era, actually came to America on a tour and went to a random grocery store, I think in Texas, and he saw the wide varieties of food available just to an average American and was like, oh my God, what have we done to our people? And that's part of the reason why the Soviet Union was basically overthrown by Yeltsin after the coup attempt against Gorbachev, the then leader of the Soviet Union. Yeltsin made the Soviet Communist Party illegal and confiscated all its assets and so on and so forth. It was a real mess. And today, Russia is a capitalist economy, but there are some differences. For example, about 40% of people are still employed in state-owned industries. There are price controls on goods such as food, which will become important in a minute.
All right, there we go. So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment.
Okay, so that is not why that system exists. That system exists so you don't just leave it in, like, random places outside, I'm pretty sure. And obviously Tucker Carlson is from an elite media family. He's from a very wealthy family, so he probably hasn't really been grocery shopping on his own, but I hate to inform him that this is actually a common feature all across Europe and indeed even in America. There is a grocery chain called Aldi's, whatever. We don't have one here, so I don't know that one. That is frequently cited in articles about this as having this same system. What I can tell you, though, is that there is a food store near my house in rural Kentucky called Save-A-Lot. And Save-A-Lot also has these in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. So it's not really like some incredible technology the Russians have invented here. Besides that, this store he is in is actually a part of a French chain called, I think, Auchan or something like that. Anyway, I'm not the best at French. Auchan, if you want to look it up. That's another way of saying it. Also probably very wrong, but again, not really a French speaker here.
Okay, this is the grocery cart escalator. This is designed, I'm figuring this out now, where the wheels don't move, they lock on the grocery cart escalator. Look, Ma, no hands.
Yeah, I guess that's, like, kind of cool, but, like, is it really that revolutionary? I mean, I have seen things like this in America. There was one I saw in Minnesota when I was going through Minnesota once. So, like, not just some, like, amazing revelation for us Americans. Some places do have this sort of thing. And it is very interesting also that you take a shopping cart through the mall section to get to, I guess, the food place. Not sure what's up with that. That seems really inconvenient, actually.
Retail placement here is a little bit different. So it's like walking through Macy's to get to Whole Foods. Okay, we've gotten through the perfume section to get to the...
I hate to tell you, but, like, that is kind of how it works in America a lot of the time already. Again, there is about half an hour away from here a pretty big mall. And yes, you do go in through usually, like, the stores on one side to get to the food stores on the other side, usually. Because it's easier. I mean, you could just go directly to the food stores, but, there's usually no parking spots, so everybody just goes in the other stores and walks across to the food stores. A little bit inconvenient, if you ask me, but I guess Tucker Carlson really likes it, so.
Grocery store. So we're going to try and buy what a family of four would buy every week, and we're going to see what the selection is, and we're going to see what it costs. Now, Russia is famous for its bread, which is one thing I can assess pretty well.
Is Russia famous for its bread? I'm not sure about that. I mean, I know Ukraine is. Is Russia, though? I mean, is it really? I don't know.
The low-carb lifestyle has not swept Russia. Thank heaven, because I mean, look at that. It's fresh, too. Look at that. Oh, come on. Unicorn.
That is a lot of bread. You know, bread is a very, let's say, quote-unquote, interesting thing to me, because today I went to a Walmart looking for some French bread to make banh mi's with, and they just had, like, the most enormous, gigantic bread. I mean, like, literally, like, you know, this thick, very, very thick bread, and, you know, really, really long, like, pretty gigantic bread, enormous. I mean, the length isn't really that much of a problem, but it was just truly enormous bread. And, like, definitely not, like, suitable for making banh mi's. I'm gonna have to look around a little bit. I didn't find what I needed there, surprisingly enough. You know what else they don't have? Smoked salmon. So I guess, like, if this Russian grocery store has smoked salmon, it's doing better than a rural grocery store in the middle of nowhere in America. However, I must note that this video he's in takes place in Moscow. This is like going to basically like a Whole Foods in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, more or less.
Corn and mini mills. All right. Some kind of Russian wheat cookies. Ooh, we need coffee, don't we? Yeah. I don't know if this is sugar or flour, to be honest with you, but it looks like a staple, so we should get it. It's a very good looking package. It's got to be flour, right? And this is Russian wine. It's from Crimea, which not only has the warm water naval base, but also is the source of most of the grapes in this part of Russia for wine. So it's apparently pretty good.
Fascinating stuff, Tucker. Does anybody else feel like he's just acting a little bit? Maybe he's not. Again, he is from a very wealthy family. He probably doesn't ever have to do grocery shopping on his own. So he could like just like be genuinely shocked. This could be like his first time in a grocery store. I don't know, but I do feel like he's kind of like playing it up a little bit. Like, wow, look at all this cool Russian stuff. Yeah, man, if you go to a different country, things are going to be different. I mean, go to a grocery store in like Japan, they're pretty wild too. Like that doesn't mean they're better than America. It just means they're different, you know?
Cheese puffs. You check out of a grocery store and you've got gum, razor blades, and candy. Actually, they hide the razor blades because we steal them. But these are all seem to be Western products. Mars, Twix, Snickers, Milky Way, Bounty, Gillette, Hall's Cough Drops, Mentos. Looks pretty non-sanctioned to me, but what do I know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it turns out it's actually pretty easy to skirt sanctions. I don't know if that's like a good thing. Personally, I'm not too invested in the whole Russia-Ukraine thing myself, vaguely on the side of Ukraine because Russia really sucks, but Ukraine also kind of really sucks. But they are the ones that got invaded. But it turns out it's pretty easy to skirt sanctions. I mean, like, it's not a difficult thing. Countries have been doing it since forever.
I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States, buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And
Okay, this is very perplexing to me because I've had grocery carts fuller than that of like American goods recently, in fact, and the total came out to something like, you know, a couple $100. So he's about to claim, I guess, that this is like $100. Sure, that's great. But you also got to consider this fact. Russia is a poorer country than America. Its GDP per capita in purchasing power is something like half the average American. So, and the actual incomes of people there are much lower than that in reality. We're just talking about like the per capita GDP is going to be including like, you know, it's going to be heavily weighted towards like the rich people side of things. I mean, like the average income in Russia for a lot of people is like $600 a month or something like that. Not a whole lot of money. And that's per person. Not a whole lot of money. And recent polling indicated that something like 60% of Russians spend about half their incomes on food. So Tucker Carlson may be amazed and astounded at these incredible things, but he's also lacking some perspective, and that's just kind of obvious. I mean, is he really a journalist? Well, no, he's a propagandist. This is a propaganda video. He lies for a living, and he's proud of it. In fact, if y'all remember, there was this case that he had in court where he was being sued, and it claimed that you had to be kind of crazy to like take Tucker Carlson seriously, right? So he is an entertainer, and he is a propagandist. He is not news. He is not a journalist. And this story is obviously tilted towards, oh, look at how cool Russia is. So just keep that in mind while we're finishing up this fun little video here.
And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
Russia is a pretty high crime country. It has had periods of severe inflation in the 90s as a result of privatization as the Soviet Union collapsed. Russia suffered probably one of the most catastrophic drops in standards of living in human history. The Soviet Union was a superpower, and then Russia suddenly was like bottoming out, having something worse than the Great Depression in like any country. So Russia has been through some really hard times, and it's not like due to like left-wing politics or politicians. It was in that case due to the privatization on a mass scale and the wealthy, connected people, the oligarchs, sucking that money up. Today, Russia may be in a better place, technically. But remember, this is Moscow he's talking about. Moscow and St. Petersburg are a couple of the richest cities in Russia. And you got to consider that since they are so rich, people's standards of living are going to be... Again, this is like going to like Midtown Manhattan and going shopping there. It's going to be a fun experience for the whole family. And if you're in like rural Russia, the standards are probably going to be very different. Now, probably not anywhere near as bad as it was in the 80s or the 90s, but it's still not going to be fantastic. Again, a majority of the Russian population suffers from food prices. Russia is not some utopia now, and it wasn't then, but especially not now. I mean, it had been doing better, and then Putin decided to start a bunch of wars, and it has gone very far south for their people. So this is an exercise in propaganda, but there's a few seconds left, so let's see if there's anything interesting to finish it up with here.
And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized. We're not making any of this up, by the way, at all.
So Russia is objectively, by almost every metric, a worse country than America. We're talking about like alcoholism, life expectancy, birth rates. Pretty much every respect, Russia is not doing well compared to the United States, which is actually like doing pretty well right now, believe it or not. And Russia is, I guess at this point, sort of a declining power in a lot of respects, and has been for a while. They don't have the prestige they used to. The fact that they're mired in this Ukraine war and have been for almost 2 years when most people thought that they would just like completely stomp Ukraine is frankly fascinating, really. And again, I'm not too invested in all of that. It just doesn't like touch me in a certain way, so it doesn't like affect me that much. But this, as an exercise in propaganda, I guess for like the average person who doesn't know a whole lot about these situations, this video must be like a revelation to them. Like, wow, look at how great Russia is. Isn't Russia the best country in the world? I can't believe our leaders are lying to us about how great they are. I mean, you see no evil in this video. But again, it's just propaganda exercise. And so that was an interesting thing. I just wanted to go through pointing out some hard facts. Hopefully, I pointed out enough to make this a worthwhile watch. Although I'm sure a bunch of deranged right-wingers are going to find this video and just, like, mess up the comments as usual. But whatever, that's fine, I guess. Good luck with that. And for everybody else who enjoyed this video for what it is, thank you for watching, and have a good one.